Welcome to this tutorial on Excel functions. Today I will take you through the function IFNA. This is a very useful function when it comes to modeling in spreadsheets. Now, we all know that NA is a function, or rather an output that is thrown out by Excel, sometimes on the basis of some formulas that we give. On the basis of this NA output, you can perform several other functions which are very handy. Let us have a look at what IFNA function does. Now IFNA has only two inputs. One is a value which has to be checked, and the other is a value if this checked cell is indeed NA. Now you can throw out a number in response to this, or you can throw out a text. So let's say that I want to get the number 100 if the selected cell is NA. So I just simply enter the number 100, close the bracket, click enter, and the output is NA. If we have to throw out a text instead of a number when the function is NA, select the cell and put whatever number that you want to throw out in double quotes, open and close the bracket, click enter. So now you get the value as 100 itself, but in text. Now another interesting thing to note here is that if this is not NA, if it is a value or a number in itself, let's take this as an example. I put the function as if NA, this particular cell which has a value of 100, and I say not found as the output. But here when I click enter, not found will not come, the value itself is replicated. This is the normal functioning of an IFNA function. If the selected cell in which we are doing the check actually has a number in it, or in other words it does not have the NA output, it will simply throw out what is already existing in that cell. Now let us go through some examples to get a hang of it. Here I've made a table with two columns. One is a lookup value and the other is final values. My intention here is very simple. If there is a value in the lookup value column, I want the value to be replicated. If there is an NA in the lookup value column, I want the text not found to be shown in the cell corresponding to the final values. So the formula that has to be entered is very simple. If NA, this particular cell which is B3, comma, and I want the text not found, so I've entered it in double quotes. Click enter. So what this means is that if the value here is NA, I will get an output of not found. If it is a value other than NA, I will get the value itself. I simply drag this formula down so it applies everywhere. Now let us have a look at the second function. Here again this is not an NA function, so you get the number itself. Here on the contrary we have an NA function, so I get not found as the text. For ease of understanding, what I've done here is that I've actually entered an NA function here so that these formulas can be performed properly. In real life, the NA is not entered by us, it is the output that is thrown out by Excel depending on some functions and calculations that we do. Moving on to the second example. This is a very simple form of an expense manager. So we have 7 days of the week and we have 3 or rather 4 items. One is food, travel, entertainment and NA. So what my intention in the expense manager is, if I select food, a text called enter amount comes. If I select entertainment, a text called enter amount comes. Similarly, if I select travel, a text called enter amount comes. And all I have to do here is enter the amount, whatever your amount is, and it will give you a sum total for that particular day. The drop downs available here are made out of data validation, which is already explained in some of the previous videos, and the data validation is taken from these particular cells. Now the interesting part about this formula is that I've used an IFNA function. I've used a VLOOKUP on the basis of the value here in this cell to check this table and give out whatever is written to the right of it. That is the second column of this table. So if the value in this cell is food, I want enter amount to come. Likewise for travel and entertainment. Now I want another interesting thing to happen here. That is, if I'm selecting NA, which basically means that no expense has to be entered for that head, the IFNA function looks up for the NA, and if it is NA, gives out a 0. So this makes our calculation easier. So if, for example, I select food here, travel here, and I don't have a third head, that is, my expenses for the day Tuesday is restricted to food and travel and nothing else, here they will prompt you to enter an amount. Here they'll prompt you to enter an amount, and here it just takes a 0, which makes that summing of these three becomes easier now. This is only a very basic example. Of course, a real expense manager can be done in a much better way. Here I just wanted to show you how IFNA can be used in real life spreadsheet models. So the formula here is very simple. We look up whatever is in the cell adjacent to this from this table, and I'm just wanting Excel to throw out enter amount as a text, and in the case of NA I just want 0 to come out. So this is like putting a nested function of VLOOKUP inside IFNA. This is also a very useful function to remember in future models and examples, highly useful. Now moving on to the third example. This is a very rudimentary form of a search, searching a particular name from a list. I want, let's say for example, if I search for Delhi, I want search result to display Delhi. If I want to search for Mumbai, I want the result to be displayed as Mumbai. I'm sorry, because this happened because the text here entered was wrong. Alright, so basically if I want to search something and if it is in this list, I want that result to be displayed here. This is again a combination of VLOOKUP IFNA. So what's happening here is that this is just a normal cell. This is where you enter whatever you want to search, and here is the result. So we enter the formula wherever the result has to be displayed. The formula is IFNA VLOOKUP and not found in the list. So here what we are doing is we are looking up this value, whatever value that you manually enter here from this table, column 1, meaning because there is only one column in this table, it's not an approximate match, it's an exact match. So if this value is found in one of these places, it will return that value. And if the output of this VLOOKUP is NA, which will happen only if the search, we're searching for an item which is not in the list. So if, for example, we're searching for Kerala, which is not in the list. So what is happening here is that this VLOOKUP portion of the formula is now throwing out NA. And since it comes out to be NA, we have specifically asked Excel to give out not found in the list as an output. So if we type Jaipur, which is, we know that it is there on the list here, we will get the output as Jaipur. If we type New York, which is not in the list, we will get not found in the list. The last example that I want to take you through is a slightly more complicated form of the search function, which is actually a combination of several functions in itself, but I just want to have a look at how IFNA can be used in complicated models. So we have a search box and we have a larger area for display. Unlike in the other example of search, wherein only one output of that particular value itself comes, and another drawback of the previous example, that is example 3, was that our search has to be very specific, exact wordings, exact spacings, etc. for this to function. Here we can look for other aspects as well. For example, if I type D, I want all the names from this list with the alphabet D in their name, nothing else. If I type Delhi, of course, we'll get only one output, that is Delhi. Now listen carefully because this is slightly complicated. So what we are doing here is that we are putting a very complicated looking nested function here, which is actually not so hard to follow. So I'll delete the whole thing and I'll show you from the beginning. So we are using a search function to search this number, and I lock it with the F4 function in all directions. Excuse me. And we want to search that here. So what happens is the search function will return a value of 1 if it is a match, and it will return a function, an output of hashtag value if it is not found. So even if I type D, this will show 1 because Delhi has a D in it. Now we want to check if the output is a number or not. So what we use is the isNumber function. Just close a bracket, and this function basically gives a true if the number previously there was 1 and false if the number previously there was not 1. So if it is not D, or whatever text we enter here is not found here, your search will actually return a hashtag value function, and your isNumber will convert that to true or false. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sum this particular value here with the cell above. So nothing happens here because this is an empty cell, and a sum of an empty cell with a number gives the number itself. Now I just carefully drag this down. So you can see if I type something else, say K for example, this means that every time the number changes from 0 to 1, so here there is a K, and then the second time the number changes there is a K, and there is no other K. So if we type N for example, N is there in a lot of occasions. So we have N in 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Remember, the change applies to only the first number. What's happening here is that because we are summing the value with our previous cell above it, the number changes. So here we have an N in Bengaluru, so the search function will return a 1, and isNumber will say it's true, and the sum of 1 or true, which is both the same, with the previous cell above, that is 0, will give you a 1 again. Here when you come to the second occasion, we already have a 1 here, and here the number again changes to 1, again comes 1 from the search result, and you sum it with the previous one, it changes to 2. So this applies to all the changes. Now what we do is very simple. We have an output area here, we do an IFNA and VLOOKUP function like we did. So the VLOOKUP actually checks for this number from this particular array or table, and we want the name from the second column and an exact match. So this is the function of VLOOKUP here. Now let's enter D for example. So there are 3 cities with the letter D, the alphabet D in their names. So VLOOKUP actually just takes out the first value of these changes, that is, it will take this, this and this. It will not take any of these intermediary values. That is the beauty of this function. And now we nest this VLOOKUP function in an IFNA and simply say that if it is NA, if the VLOOKUP actually throws out an NA, which can happen if the search fails, we just want a null sort of a return. That is, we don't want anything to be returned. So how we do that is we simply enter double quotes twice and click enter. So it means that here and here the VLOOKUP doesn't return anything because there are no 4 and 5 to be checked from this table. So this open and closing of quotation marks ensures that there are no returns that are coming here. So this is a rather extended form of a search function. So I hope that now you are able to understand the beauty of IFNA function, which is in itself a rather simple function, but when used in conjunction with other functions, it can be used very wisely and to great effect. Thank you so much for listening to the tutorial. Have a great day. Thank you.